Hello and welcome back to ScreenBlue.com.
In this lecture, we're going to learn about the object-oriented programming, also called as OOPS concept. And so what is OOPS, or object-oriented programming language? Object-oriented programming languages are organized around objects rather than actions and data rather than logic. And so before object-oriented programming, we used to have scripting language, right? Like such as Visual Basic and VisualBasic.net. Okay, and they focused more on actions and logic. However, with object-oriented programming, it's more focused on objects and data. So logical procedure that takes input data, processes it, and produces output data. So in object-oriented programming language, everything is an object, just like real world. Okay, so like I said before, scripting language, right, or functional programming language, they're more focused on actions, right, and they're more focused on logic. Right? That logic means that takes input data, processes it, and produces output data. However, object-oriented programming language is more focused on object, right? So with that means, let's say you create an object of like a vehicle, right, or automobile, and you can create millions of objects from that class. So that's the advantage of object-oriented programming language. And there are a lot of different features of object-oriented programming. These are the benefits. So first one is encapsulation, okay, inheritance, polymorphism, overriding, abstraction, and interfaces. We're going to go one by one because this is one of the very important topic of the entire Java programming language. Okay, this is one of the features that made Java programming language the most popular and commonly used programming language. Now, so let's try to understand what encapsulation is then. Encapsulation is the process of packing up data and functions into a single unit. It's also an internal representation of an object hidden from outside. The variables of the class will be hidden from other classes and can be accessed only through the methods of their current classes. And it can be used in order to prevent modification of variables from object. Okay, so basically what that means is, right, remember when we created a car or automobile class, right, we had a lot of variables, right? In that variables we did not make it private, right? But the main idea of encapsulation is you make the variables private, right? And then you also create a getter and setter methods, right? And now the outside classes cannot change or directly change your variables, right? They can only do that using getters and setter methods. So if they have access to setter and getter method, they can be able to access as variables. So you're kind of encapsulating the variables here, the data. So encapsulation can be used in order to prevent modification of variable from objects. So what that means is, let's say you have this private variable, right, in your class, right? And if you do not provide a setter method, right, so now the user can only get the value from the variable. They cannot set it. They cannot change the variable, right? So that's the encapsulation. Like I said here, to achieve encapsulation in Java, you declare the variables of a class as private, then you provide public getter and setter methods to modify and view variables. So you cannot just directly change the variable, right? So let's say you have objects 100, right? Then on the object 100, you can set the variable, right? And for that variable, you can get the value of that variable. But for other object, you cannot change the variable value. Okay, so that's the benefit of encapsulation. You're actually, preventing users to change the variable value for all objects. So, for instance, here I've got this customer class here, right? Which is inside this package here, package 6, and I've got this 3 variables here, private variables, right? And these are instance variables. You should know that by now. So I've got name, ID number, and age. Okay, age is a number, so it's an int. And I'm creating a getter and setter methods here. Get age will give me the age value here. Get name will give me the name, and get ID number will give me the value of the ID number. Then I've got this setter methods here, set age, set name, and set ID. Now, so now this is the customer class that has private variables and have getter and setters. So now, and I have another method here, the static method here, and I'm actually creating an object from that customer class and say customer.1 new customer and customer1.set name here. So basically what I'm actually doing is I'm actually setting the value, setting the name of this customer1, right? So with this set method, I can only change the value for this customer1. I cannot change the value of customer2 or customer3 and so on, right? So you're kind of encapsulating your objects here. Okay, and you have also set age 25 and set ID now. And so when I do print ln, I can also get the name of the value, get age as well, and get the ID name if you would like. So when I do this, I'm actually going to get, so here I've got customer1.get name. Frank's age is, and it's going to get the age, which is 25. So that's kind of the example of encapsulation here. Basically what we did is we created the variables, right, as name, age, and ID num as private variables, right? Then we created a getter and setter method. Now, create an object. This object can only set and get the method. They cannot change the value for all the objects. They can only do that for that object. So now let's go to our RubyMine here, and I'm actually gonna create the encapsulation here. Let's say encapsulation, and here I'm actually going to create a private variable string, private string name, private string ID num, private int age. So now I can create a getter and setter methods here. So the one way, easy way to do that, right, is you could actually right click and generate, okay, and you can also create getter and setter here. So if I do getter and setter here, it's going to ask me what getter and setters I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to select all three. So here, these are all getter and setter methods. Okay, so this is one of the benefit of using this IDE. So I could basically, you know, create this IntelliJ helped me to create getter and setter methods, so I can actually save some time. So I've got this private variable, right? Name, ID num, and age. So now I'm actually going to create here encapsulation method. So in here, I'm actually going to do public static void main string args. All right, so I'm here. I'm going to say encapsulation is going to be customer1 equal new. I'm going to say encapsulation. All right, and I'm going to say customer1 dot set name John, customer1 set ID num like 2324 whatever, customer1 dot set age equal it to 35. I'm going to say system1 print ln. I'm going to say customer, I'm just going to say this person's age with ID num, that, okay, is, say D years old. Okay, so here I'm actually going to do string dot format because I'm doing string interpolations, right, which we learned in our previous lecture. So here I'm actually going to do customer1 dot get name, customer1 dot get ID num, customer1 dot get age. So now if I run this, see what happens. It's, oh, okay, I've missed one parenthesis. Let's run it again. And here it says John's ID number with ID num 2434 is 35 euros. Okay, okay. Just going to say John with ID num is that. Okay, let's run it again. It's going to say John with ID number 234434 is 35 years old. Now let's give an example in here, right? So now if I do system.out.println, so if I try to get customer1.age, so if I just do this, it's going to throw an error, okay? Because I have this age variable, right? But it's private. So I cannot just get the age just like this. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to create another variable here, string address. Okay, just going to make that like that. And here, if I do system.out.println customer1.address. See, I have access to this address variable, right? So this one has an address variable, and I have access to that, right? So let's say here, I can change this address to, let's something like 12341 California Avenue. Let's say Richmond, VA 2022. So, can I comment this? Right, so I'm able to actually change this address variable here, right? This address here, I've got this variable and I'm able to change it here and actually do whatever I want, right? But if I do private, right? So if I do private now, okay, I don't have access to this address now. I cannot change it. The only way I can change it is using setter and getter method. So that is the encapsulation. Means that's what encapsulation means. You cannot, once you make it private, you can't change or do anything, right? The only way you change it is you provide getter and setter methods. So that's how you could do encapsulation, right? You're preventing users to change the data. You provide them getter and setter methods, and they could do whatever they want, right? If you, let's say for instance, if you don't want the ID num to, let's say this ID number, you don't want them to change it. So once it's set, it's immutable, it's not changeable, right? So now here, I can get the ID num, but I cannot change it. So in here now, so I cannot change it. You see here? It's gonna throw an error because I cannot change it, right? Right, so here, let's say that since that ID num is, I can only get it, let's also create the constructor here. And here, I'm actually going to create string parameter, and it's going to be ID. Okay, and this .id num is going to be this ID. So now, when you create encapsulation, you give an ID, right? Like that. And when you do this, it's going to say John with ID number 214313 is 35 years old, right? So I cannot actually set the ID num here because I don't have that setter method. I can only get the ID num. But here, as you can see, once the ID number was set, right, with this constructor, I cannot change it. It's done. It's like your social security number if you're living in the United States, right, or your tax ID number, wherever your country you're living in. Once it's set, you cannot change it, right? That's the main idea behind encapsulation. You're actually protecting your data, right? You're not you don't want other people to just change it whenever they want it, right? You provide them setter and getter methods, and if you want them to just get it, right, not change the data, then you don't provide the setter method. So that's pretty much about encapsulation. Is, like I said, it's one of the important feature that is commonly used in Java, okay, to protect people from just changing the data on fly. So that's it for this lecture. I will see you guys in our next lecture.